Our story opens with a young boy who, with all the confidence in the world, declares that he's a wizard. He's in the middle of a classic game of wizard versus monster with his friend, who is fully committed to her role. But our guy takes method acting a little too seriously and actually bonks her on the head with his staff. She's furious, yelling that he's not supposed to hit her for real because everyone knows wizards are supposed to beat monsters. Their classic childhood argument is interrupted by an old man who has been watching them from a distance. The children happily greet the village elder, an old man named Rebus. The boy eagerly asks what it takes to become a wizard, but Rebus immediately shuts him down. He explains that wizards are basically the untouchable upper class of society, born with their powers, not made. A nearby man gently scolds Rebus for crushing the children's dreams so bluntly, but Rebus ignores the comment, turning his attention to a more serious matter. The man asks if the rumors about a monster appearing are true. With a heavy look, Rebus confirms that the news is real, and it's bad. Apparently, a villager had a run-in with the creature just last night, near the village entrance. It's described as a terrifying leopard as big as a house, covered in pitch-black shadows. A woman reassures the young girl not to worry, because the village chief has already gone to the city to hire a wizard. Another villager expresses his relief, confident that a professional wizard will easily take care of the beast. The adults warn the little girl to stay out of the forest until the monster is dealt with. They all agree that killing a monster is nearly impossible for regular people without a wizard's help. The conversation continues, confirming that the entire village is on high alert about the new threat. But the man raises a good point. What about the one person who's always isolated from the village? He's talking about the reclusive Shepard, who lives all by himself up on Hisarl Hill. The scene cuts to a fluffy white sheep, peacefully dozing in a sunny field, looking like bunny number 273. And there he is, the shepherd Turan, taking a nap right alongside his flock. Turan wakes up, looking completely unbothered and thoroughly unimpressed with his daily life. Lying back down, he lets out a sigh, complaining aloud about how incredibly boring everything is. He reflects on his monotonous life, with the same scenery greeting him every single day. It's just an endless loop of the same old routine, centered around his tiny homestead. He's so isolated that he jokes he's going to forget how to talk to people. Suddenly, a voice calls him a pathetic brat, and Turan's peaceful grumbling is interrupted. It's Rebus, who has climbed all the way up the hill just to scold him for slacking off. Turan, completely unfazed, just tells the old man to move because he's blocking his sun. Rebus asks if Turan is still salty about that incident, trying to play it down. But Turan calls him out immediately, reminding him of the time Rebus tried to steal his sheep right after his mother died. Getting up, Turan makes it clear that he hasn't forgotten, and he definitely hasn't forgiven him for it. He tells Rebus to spit out what he came to say and get lost, which earns him a classic, "You little brat," from the elder. Turan's expression hardens, a clear sign that he's not in the mood for games. Rebus finally gets to the point and drops the bomb. A monster has appeared near the village. He's on his way back from warning the others, adding that it's a leopard the size of a house. Rebus is shocked that Turan isn't scared, since a shepherd with a flock of sheep is the perfect monster bait. He warns Turan to be careful, mentioning again that the village chief went to hire a wizard for help. Rebus claims he came all this way because he was worried, but Turan sees right through his act. Turan knows the old man was probably more concerned about the sheep than about him. With a smirk, Turan tells him to leave since he's finished talking business. And for the final blow, he insults the old man's breath, saying it's so bad his nose is going to rot. As Rebus stomps off in a huff, Turan just smiles, completely satisfied with himself. After he's gone, Turan's attention shifts to the word that caught his interest: monsters. He muses that just as humans have their peak in wizards, beasts have theirs in monsters. He realizes this means he might finally get to see a real wizard in person. He's also skeptical, figuring any wizard a poor village can afford probably won't be that impressive. Still, a hint of a smile plays on his lips as he finds himself curious to see their power firsthand. But then, a strange scent hits him, carried on the wind. His eyes snap open as he recognizes the unmistakable, metallic smell. It's blood, and the lazy shepherd is suddenly on high alert. Wasting no time, he heads into the forest as the sun begins to set. He follows the scent, his leisurely stroll replaced with a determined pace. The smell gets stronger, and his lips curl into a grim line. And then he finds it, the mangled, bloody corpse of Rebus, torn to pieces on the forest floor. He wryly notes the irony of the old man, telling him to be careful, only to get himself killed. Looking at the horrific scene, he can tell this wasn't the work of any normal animal. He realizes with certainty that this was the monster Rebus had warned him about. Just then, a sound from the shadows makes him whip his head around. A massive, rock-armored paw, with glowing yellow claws, steps into the clearing. The monster emerges, a terrifying beast made of shadow and stone, its eyes burning with hunger. A memory flashes through his mind of a younger him asking about monsters. He recalls being told that monsters are insanely strong, a force that normal adults can't hope to beat. His own father had warned him that rushing in would just get him killed instantly. When he asked what would happen to the village, he was told not to worry. His father had placed all his faith in the village chief, bringing a wizard to save them. Back in the present, Turan stands his ground, a strange red aura flaring around him. He seems to be testing something, a subtle power that isn't quite working. The monster doesn't care about his internal monologue and lunges forward to attack. But Turan simply yells one word: stop. The monster's charge continues, completely unaffected by his command. A smirk appears on his face. He seems almost amused that he couldn't even stop it, let alone kill it. The monster's claws come crashing down, aiming to obliterate him right where he stands. With its glowing eyes fixed on him, the monster snarls, ready for the kill. But Turan isn't about to become Monster Chow, and gracefully leaps out of the way. With a newfound determination, he decides to switch tactics. He casually picks up a simple stone from the ground, weighing it in his hand. It's time, he says, for a shepherd to do what a shepherd does, pulling out a slingshot. As the monster charges again, Turan stands ready, completely calm in the face of death. He whispers a single word: harden, and the stone in his hand begins to glow with a strange power. He places the enchanted stone into the sling, his movements fluid and practiced. His eyes blaze with golden light as he utters his next command: become faster. He begins to swing the sling, spinning it at an impossible speed that blurs the very air around it. With his eyes locked on the target, he gives his final order: pierce through. He releases the stone, and it shoots forward like a beam of light, a magical railgun blast. The projectile screams through the air, heading straight for the monster's face. It easily breaks through the beast's tough, rocky hide. The enchanted stone tears right through its head, causing an explosion of blood and gore. But the monster isn't fazed. It comes down upon Turan with both its massive claws. Turan smirks, revealing his true plan all along. As the giant rushes for him, we see the rock he slingshotted coming down from high in the air. With perfect accuracy, he went straight for the head, completely obliterating it. He casually remarks that this was his first time using that trick on a monster. Now he's just annoyed, wondering what to do with the giant dead body. Covered in monster blood, he grumbles that those villagers just made more work for him.
Our hero Turan scoffs, annoyed he had to get his hands dirty for a bunch of ungrateful villagers. But what they don't know is that he's secretly a wizard, a fact he keeps buried deep inside. The story flashes back 8 years, to the day he first discovered these special abilities. As a 10-year-old kid, he found he could move things with his mind, a classic anime power awakening. He was so excited, he immediately ran to show his mom the cool new trick he learned. But when his mother saw the floating objects, she didn't look proud, she looked terrified. Young Turan tried to show off how he could control fire and wind, but his mom wasn't having it. Instead of praise, she screamed at him to stop, a reaction that stuck with him forever. Confused, Turan could only watch as his mother stopped the floating log and called out his name. She knelt down, her expression dead serious, and told him they needed to have a talk. She started by asking if he wanted to stay with her for a long time, and of course, he said yes. Then came the catch: he had to promise to never, ever use his newfound powers again. With a pained look, she clarified that he must never use his power in front of other people. Turan didn't understand why and asked for an explanation, so his mother brought up an old story. She began explaining that while both nobles and knights can be wizards, they are fundamentally different. Nobles are descended from divine beings, while knights are just nobles with mixed human blood. Turan confirmed that he remembered the stories she used to tell him about their world. And that difference was exactly why he had to hide his abilities from the world. She revealed that he inherited his powers from his father, a knight, and that evil nobles treat knights as slaves. Her final warning was crystal clear: absolutely nobody could ever find out that he was a wizard. With tears in her eyes, she pleaded with him one last time to promise her he'd keep his secret. And just like that, the flashback ends, with 8 years having passed since that day. Back in the present, Turan reflects on how he's kept that promise to his mother all this time. He stares out the window, firm in his decision to never break that promise. He has no desire to reveal himself as a wizard and would rather live a quiet life. He'd rather just chill at home, but of course, trouble comes knocking anyway. Suddenly, a loud banging at the door interrupts his peace and quiet. Turan opens it, completely unfazed, already knowing who's on the other side. It's a mob of angry villagers, led by a particularly beefy-looking guy, and they do not look happy. Instead of being intimidated, Turan just lets out a massive yawn in their faces. He casually asks if they're seriously accusing him of killing the village elder, Rebus. The leader of the mob grabs him, yelling that he's shameless for what he did. The guy's genius theory is that Turan hurt the old man and fed him to monsters. Turan doesn't even bother to respond to such a dumb accusation. Instead, he tells the group of morons that he knows exactly why they're trying to frame him. He calls them out, saying the elder died because they were all too scared to fight the monster themselves. With a smirk, he points out that blaming him is just the easy way to shift their own guilt. Exposed and enraged, the bully leader throws a wild punch at Turan's face. But Turan easily dodges the attack, looking like he's barely even trying. As he ducks, he thinks to himself about how convenient having magic really is. Then he delivers a swift counterattack right to the bully's jaw, sending him flying. Turan explains internally that he can basically make anything happen just by wishing for it and spending some mana. He demonstrates by subtly whispering, "Fall over," and instantly, one of the villagers trips on nothing. He doesn't need flashy fireballs, a little push is all it takes to handle these goons. With a tiny bit of mana, he reinforces his body to effortlessly sidestep another attack. His whole strategy is to use his power so subtly that nobody would ever suspect he's a wizard. He uses just enough force to break their weapons and knock them around, but not enough to seriously injure them. His plan is simple: completely dominate them without revealing his true strength. He weaves through their pathetic attacks, breaking their clubs and their spirits with every move. The last of the villagers goes down, ending the sad excuse for a fight. He stands over the bodies, having successfully hidden his wizard identity once again. Looking down on them, he coldly remarks that they should have saved their energy for Rebus' funeral. Just then, a group of women from the village shows up, probably to check on their husbands. Turan, completely done with their nonsense, stays silent, giving them a death glare. He simply tells them to take the idiots and get lost, having no time for their drama. Finally alone, Turan goes back inside his cozy little cottage to get some peace. He sighs, already knowing the villagers will use this as an excuse to rip him off during trades. But he's not too worried, he can always just convince them to give him a fair price. He figures they won't be back for a while, but of course, he spoke too soon. Another knock echoes through the house, and he can't believe they have the nerve to come back. He swings the door open, ready to throw down again, but stops in his tracks. This time, it's not a villager, it's a tall, imposing man with a sword at his hip. The stranger, a scarred traveler named Kiorn, politely apologizes for interrupting at a bad time. Turan is caught off guard, realizing this guy is a traveler, a rare sight in these parts. Turan quickly apologizes for his aggressive welcome, blaming it on some uninvited guests from earlier. He internally freaks out, realizing he actually has to use proper manners for the first time in years. He's immediately suspicious, wondering what a well-armed traveler is doing in his sleepy town. Just as he's about to point Kiorn to the nearest inn, a loud stomach growl breaks the tension. Turan lets out a sigh, feeling a little bad for the clearly starving traveler. Deciding to be hospitable, he invites the mysterious man inside his home. He whips up a pretty decent-looking meal for his unexpected guest. Although Turan claims it's not much, Kiorn is amazed, calling the humble meal a feast. As they eat, Kiorn notes how surprising it is that Turan has never met an outsider before. Turan explains that he was born and raised on this hill, living his whole life as a simple shepherd. But Kiorn finds this story interesting, as his eyes narrow with suspicion. Turan plays dumb, but Kiorn isn't buying it for a second. He points out that Turan's manners are way too good for a simple shepherd from the sticks. Turan explains that his mother taught him everything, but she passed away from an illness a few years ago. Kiorn offers his condolences, saying his mother must be proud of the son she raised. Turan just shrugs it off, saying he's just living the way his mother taught him. Changing the subject, he asks what brings a traveler like Kiorn to such a remote town. Kiorn reveals he was hired by the villagers to take care of a monster puma lurking nearby. And then he drops the bomb, casually announcing, "I am a wizard." Turan connects the dots, realizing Kiorn must be the wizard the village elder was talking about. Now that the introductions are over, Kiorn turns the tables and starts his interrogation. He says he can sense a monster nearby, but strangely, he can't actually see one. What's even weirder, he notes, is that Turan knows about the monster but seems completely calm. He asks why Turan isn't scared, considering the monster already attacked a human. Kiorn's eyes narrow, calling Turan awfully brave for a shepherd who's never left town. With a dead serious gaze, he asks the question one more time, "Who are you?" The question echoes in Turan's mind, throwing him back into the memory of his mother's warning. He remembers asking her why he had to hide his powers from the bad nobles. She explained that if nobles are shepherds, then knights are nothing more than the dogs they keep. They might treat their dogs like family, but in the end, they can be sold or sacrificed at any time. She told him she didn't want that kind of disposable life for him, asking if he wanted to stay with her. Her final command was for him to remember one thing: nobody could ever know he was a wizard. Especially other wizards, who would separate them and turn him into their shepherd dog. Turan's thoughts drift back to the present, his mother's words ringing in his ears. And he remembers her final, chilling piece of advice: to keep his secret, he might have to kill people. Turan knows that if this knight discovers he's a wizard, he might have to kill him. The man's intense gaze presses Turan for an answer he can't give. But it turns out the whole thing was just a terrible joke that he immediately regrets. Turan, who has clearly never experienced humor before, is just confused. The two of them get into an apology off, trying to smooth over the awkwardness. The old man admits he was just messing with Turan because his serious reaction was too funny. Deciding to start over, he offers a hand for a proper introduction. He introduces himself as Kiorn, a wanderer. Turan accepts the handshake, finally feeling a bit more at ease. And our boy introduces himself as Turan, a simple shepherd. Over dinner, Turan learns that he's 18 while Kiorn is a whopping 75. Kiorn explains that wizards age much slower than normal people, which is why he still looks so good. Turan learns he became a wanderer after serving a noble family for 60 years. Now in his later years, he just wants to roam free and see the world. Turan finds himself actually enjoying the harmless conversation. He never expected to meet a good person like Kiorn among the knights he was taught to fear. And for the first time, he realizes how enjoyable sharing a simple meal can be. They end up talking so long they don't even notice the sun rising. Realizing the time, Kiorn decides he should get going to continue his hunt. As payment, he leaves behind a valuable Arabian silver coin, more than enough for the meal. Turan graciously accepts it, wishing him a safe hunt. Kiorn leaves with a smile, promising he might come back to mooch off him again. And with that, the old wanderer heads off into the sunrise. After Kiorn leaves, Turan returns to his flock, seemingly going back to his normal, quiet life. But it's clear something has changed, as a mysterious smile forms on his face while he gives a simple command: gather. In an instant, the sheep all dutifully gather around him. Turan reflects on his meeting with Kiorn, realizing it's the first time he's ever met another wizard. He's surprised by how comfortable and at ease the old man was. In fact, Kiorn was more of a decent person than any other adult he'd ever met. He even imagines Kiorn returning with another kill, reinforcing that he was a genuinely good person. Turan had always been taught that knights were just emotionless hunting dogs for the nobles. This leaves him with a new problem: how is he supposed to tell this nice old man the monster is already dead? Meanwhile, Kiorn makes his way up Hisril Hill to where the monster was last spotted. As he gets closer, he senses that something is off. There are clear signs of a struggle, but he can't feel the presence of any monster nearby. He wonders if someone else already took care of the hunt. Following the trail of destruction, he wonders if the village chief hired another wizard for the job. Either way, he's just relieved that the village is safe. But that feeling of relief is cut short when he notices something terrifying. He quickly turns around, his instincts screaming that danger is near. From the ground, a monstrous claw begins to emerge from a pool of black ooze. The beast that forms is a grotesque nightmare of teeth and claws. Kiorn immediately recognizes it as a monster's wraith, a far greater threat than he anticipated. He can't believe what he's seeing, wondering who would be so careless. Before he can process it, the wraith attacks with a massive spectral claw. Kiorn is blown away by the force of the attack. He knows that a wraith only forms when a monster's mana isn't properly absorbed after it's killed. The old knight dodges another crushing blow from the beast. This confirms a wizard killed the original monster, but he can't understand why they'd make such a basic mistake. He dismisses the idea of a rookie, since no novice could have killed a monster like this in the first place. The only other possibility is that the wizard let the wraith form on purpose. But there's no time to think, as Kjorn powers up to destroy the monster himself. He unleashes a powerful blast of fire magic, shooting it straight at the wraith. To his shock, the monster doesn't even flinch, taking the full force of the blast head-on. His magic was completely nullified, meaning the monster's mana is far stronger than his own. Suddenly, the wraith vanishes into thin air, leaving Kjorn completely bewildered. He frantically scans the area, wondering if the creature is trying to counter his magic. He quickly realizes the monster has dissolved into the shadows beneath his own feet. The wraith reforms and attacks from his blind spot, catching him completely off guard. He takes a brutal hit to his side, sending him flying. Kjorn knows this isn't a fight he can win, as a monster this powerful would require a noble to defeat. He can't believe his bad luck, running into a wraith of this caliber in such a remote place. Outmatched and wounded, he accepts that this is where his journey ends. Still, a weary smile creeps onto his face as he prepares for one last stand. Clenching his jaw, he declares that if he's going down, he's taking the monster with him. His plan is simple: concentrate all his remaining mana into one hand and unleash it at point-blank range. He waits for the monster to lunge, ready to execute his suicide attack. But just as the beast closes in, a strange blue light appears out of nowhere. A massive rock flies in, blocking the wraith's attack at the last second. Kjorn can only stare in disbelief at his unexpected rescue. He looks up to see the massive boulder that just saved his life floating in midair. A familiar voice calls out, asking if he's okay. Turan approaches from the trees, casually remarking that his joke was pretty startling too. Kjorn can only say his name, still trying to process what just happened. The old knight finally puts the pieces together, and Turan confirms that yes, he is a wizard. Kjorn immediately asks why Turan didn't just tell him he was a wizard. He rephrases, asking why Turan bothered to help him when he could have just walked away. Turan starts to explain with a slight smirk. The scene flashes back to a conversation they had earlier, where Kjorn asked why Turan was going so far for the village. Kjorn had pointed out that with Turan's skills, he could be earning a lot more money somewhere else. Turan had simply answered that he thought the villagers were pitiful people. He explained that they live in constant fear with no one to protect them. Turan believes that wizards, who have inherited the power of a god, should live to protect commoners. Kjorn admitted that not every wizard thinks that way, and that everyone has their own path. A knowing smile had appeared on Turan's face. Back in the present, Turan echoes Kjorn's words, saying everyone has their own way of living. The monster roars, smashing the ground where they once stood. Kjorn urgently tells Turan they can't handle this enemy. He warns that only a noble could fight it and tells Turan to evacuate the village. Kjorn prepares to hold off the monster alone, buying time for the others to escape. He knows he can't last long, but he's determined to try. But a calm voice simply tells him, it's okay. Kjorn looks back, confused by Turan's confidence. Turan says that as long as his attack lands, everything will be fine. Kjorn can't believe it, wondering if the young man can really handle a monster meant for nobles. The veteran knight suddenly realizes this isn't just some kid he met in a village. He's witnessing something far more significant than the reckless bravery of a young knight. As Turan's mana flares up, Kjorn understands what he's seeing. This moment could very well be the beginning of a wizard who will turn the entire world upside down. As the giant wraith towers over him, Turan stands his ground. But instead of being scared, Turan just smirks, excited to finally test his own limits. Watching from the sidelines, the injured Kjorn tries to talk some sense into him, warning that this opponent is on another level. Before Kjorn can even finish saying they should team up, the wraith lunges straight for him. But Turan unleashes a massive blast of his own, stopping the creature in its tracks and shocking Kjorn. Kjorn looks at his own fading power, realizing that in his current state, he'd only be a liability. He lowers his hand, accepting that he isn't here to fight alongside the boy. His true purpose now is to help Turan's incredible talent fully awaken. Turan curses under his breath as he realizes his attack had absolutely no effect. He's sent flying backward, learning the hard way that this thing doesn't play by normal rules. Kjorn yells out what every gamer already knows, you can't kill a wraith with physical attacks. As the monster stomps towards him, Turan asks the million-dollar question, then how do I kill it? Luckily, Kjorn has the classic fantasy answer ready, hit it with some fire. Or lightning, that works too, basically any elemental magic will do the trick. So Turan tries to channel some flames, but they just fizzle out harmlessly against the wraith's head. Turan states the obvious that it isn't working, while Kjorn loses his patience. It suddenly dawns on Kjorn that this kid somehow doesn't even know the most basic rules of being a wizard. A horrifying possibility begins to form in the old wizard's mind. He realizes Turan must have created the wraith himself by killing the original beast, meaning he's never even absorbed mana before. Kjorn can't believe it, Turan is already this powerful without ever having any formal training. With new instructions, Turan gets into position to try again. This time, he focuses his energy and successfully creates a swirling flame in his hand. Kjorn knows that simply making a fire is easy, but controlling it should take years of separate training. But this is a manhwa protagonist we're talking about, so of course he masters it instantly, stunning Kjorn completely. Without a moment's hesitation, Turan unleashes his newfound power, slamming the fireball into the ground at the wraith's feet. A wave of fire erupts from the ground, completely engulfing the wraith's spiritual form. The creature is instantly incinerated, its entire body consumed by the raging inferno. Kjorn snaps him back to reality, telling him to keep feeding the fire with mana so it doesn't go out. He tells Turan to burn every last trace of the wraith away, leaving nothing behind. Turan focuses, his eyes glowing with newfound power as he maintains the spell. He unleashes one final, massive blast of fire, making sure the job is done. As the smoke clears, Kjorn looks up with a sense of relief, realizing they've actually won. He reflects on the wraith's power, noting that it was strong enough to require a noble-class wizard to defeat. And yet, this kid managed to take it down all by himself. Turan stands over the scorched remains, while Kjorn can hardly believe a simple Shepard pulled it off. Just as they think it's over, Kjorn warns him to absorb the leftover mana before another wraith forms. Turan, ever the beginner, has to ask how to do that, and Kjorn gives him some simple visualization instructions. Turan closes his eyes and concentrates, ready to try absorbing mana for the very first time. Immediately, the green residual energy from the wraith begins to flow out of the corpse. The mana streams from the ground and funnels directly into Turan's outstretched hand. This energy surges through his body, lighting up his entire mana circuit system like a Christmas tree. His eyes flash open, now glowing with the same green energy he just absorbed. Kjorn tells him he should feel a sense of pleasure from the experience, still in disbelief at what he just witnessed. He has to ask for confirmation if that was really Turan's first time absorbing mana, and Turan simply replies, yes. Kjorn explains the normal progression of a wizard's power, which usually involves a slow growth supplemented by absorbing mana from monsters. But since this was Turan's first time, it means his innate potential is on a completely different level than anyone else's. The implications of this discovery leave Kjorn speechless, realizing what this young man truly is. He calls out to Turan, who turns to face him, unaware of the sudden shift in the old wizard's perspective. Kjorn's entire demeanor changes as he bows respectfully, asking which noble house a man of his power belongs to. Turan seems a bit flustered by the sudden formality, simply confirming that the wizard is talking to him. Turan cheekily tells the great wizard to wipe the blood off his own arm first. Kjorn looks down at his mangled arm, having completely forgotten about his own serious injuries. After getting patched up, Kjorn looks down at his bandaged arm with a heavy heart. Back at Turan's cabin, he apologizes for making someone so esteemed tend to his wounds. Turan insists again that he's just a simple shepherd who doesn't even know his own father. He tells Kjorn to cut it out, and the old man finally agrees to drop the formalities. But Kjorn is still curious why a wizard as powerful as him would choose to live as a simple shepherd. Turan reveals it was his mother's dying wish for him to stay hidden on the mountain. She warned him that if the nobles ever discovered his power, they would use him as a disposable tool. Kjorn quietly agrees that his mother was wise, much to Turan's surprise. He confirms that Turan's mother wasn't wrong to be so cautious about the outside world. He explains that great power inevitably leads to conflict, recounting a major war between noble houses from 2 decades ago. It was a brutal war between the House of Arabayan, which he served, and the Great House of Zahar. Nearly a third of the Arabayan knights were wiped out in the conflict. He grimly adds that sadly, everyone he cared about was in that fallen third. His friend, his teacher, and even his wife and son were all massacred by House Zahar, and he was the sole survivor. This is why his mother was right, a knight's life can be thrown away more easily than a commoner's. But Kjorn says the one thing she was wrong about was Turan's own aptitude. He admits that while he himself is a fairly skilled knight, he was useless against the wraith Turan easily destroyed. This means Turan's potential isn't just that of a knight, but at minimum, he's at the level of a noble. And not just any noble, but one with at least upper-tier aptitude. Turan asks if his mother lied about his father being a knight, but Kjorn explains that sometimes a noble-class child can be born from knights. Because of this immense potential, Kjorn advises him that it would be better to leave the hill and go out into the world. He explains that humanity isn't the complete master of the world and desperately needs more powerful people to protect it. Kjorn reveals that long ago, other powerful races were pushed out by the gods and are just waiting for a chance to make their comeback. And amidst all these external threats, the human nobles are too busy waging war against each other to notice. That's why the world desperately needs strong and kind-hearted nobles like Turan to step up. Besides, Kjorn can tell that Turan isn't truly satisfied living out his days as a simple shepherd. His words strike a chord with Turan, who seems to be reconsidering his isolated life. He asks what he could possibly gain from going down the mountain, and Kjorn says it depends on what he wants. Fame, wealth, authority, or friendship, all things he'll never find hiding away up here. He paints a picture of a more exciting life, where Turan could wander the world and destroy monsters that threaten people. Or he could become an explorer, or even be adopted into a noble house to walk the path of power. After hearing all this, Turan admits that Kjorn might have a point. Almost any life would be more interesting than just herding sheep for the rest of his days. Turan smiles, admitting that for the first time, he's actually curious about the world outside. Kjorn is pleased and promises to support Turan in every way he can. He then asks a question that will change everything: what is Turan's bloodline ability? He quickly apologizes, remembering that Turan is completely new to the world of magic. He explains that a bloodline ability is a special trait inherited from noble ancestors, and it's what separates them from common knights. He asks if there's any spell that feels unusually easy for him, or any outstanding ability he has that doesn't use magic. Turan dismisses his physical strength, but Kjorn reminds him that all wizards are naturally stronger than normal humans. Turan mentions he has a good nose and is pretty good at throwing stones, and Kjorn confirms an exceptional sense of smell could be a bloodline ability. He also notes that being skilled with thrown weapons is a common trait of his own house, Arabayan. He encourages Turan to tell him more, not realizing the bombshell that's about to be dropped. But when Turan finishes explaining his other abilities, Kjorn's expression turns dark, and Turan can immediately sense the change in mood. Turan asks why he's acting so strangely, but Kjorn just clenches his fist in grim realization. With a cold tone, Kjorn tells him that he thinks he knows which noble house Turan's abilities are closest to. Turan asks which house, completely oblivious to the horrifying truth he's about to hear. Kjorn ominously replies that his bloodline belongs to one of the great houses. A house known as the Pursuers, or the Hunters, as a flashback shows Kjorn cradling his dead wife. He reveals the terrible truth: Turan is from House Zahar, the very same house that fought against him in the war. The same house that massacred his family and everyone he ever cared about. The realization hits Turan like a ton of bricks. Turan is hit with a shocking revelation: he's a descendant of the great House Zahar. This means his bloodline is the sworn enemy of the very man standing before him, the Elder. He doesn't know what to do. How can he apologize for a war fought by relatives he's never even met? Just as he's spiraling, the Elder, Kjorn, calmly calls out his name. Instead of the anger Turan expected, Kjorn places a reassuring hand on his shoulder, telling him not to worry. Turan is still confused, trying to reason that he had no part in the ancient conflict. Kjorn waves it off as an adult situation, wisely stating that washing blood with more blood only continues the cycle of violence. But Turan has to know, does the Elder have any regrets? He specifically asks if Kjorn regrets telling him to go down the mountain now that he knows the truth. Kjorn admits that with Turan's immense talent, leaving the mountain would inevitably lead him to join the Zahar family anyway. But despite their family's history, Kjorn says he trusts Turan's character. He saw Turan's true nature when he risked exposing his secret identity just to save him. In fact, Kjorn thinks that if a good person like Turan rose through the Zahar ranks, he could prevent future wars. But he tells Turan not to stress about it, it's just a thought for the future. After hearing this, Turan's mind is made up, much to Kjorn's surprise. With a newfound determination, Turan announces his decision to leave the mountain and face the world. Kiorn is pleased but advises him to wait a little longer. Turan, ever the good guy, says he'll stay until the elder's injuries are fully healed. And so, while Kiorn recovers, Turan's magic lessons officially begin. Kiorn starts with the basics, explaining that mana is the absolute key to all magic. However, it's not as simple as just having a lot of it, the mana must match the magic you want to use. Turan, being a good student, immediately asks for the details on this matching standard. Kiorn breaks it down for him, explaining that magic is governed by three main factors. The first, bloodline, is an inherited talent for magic, the kind of cheat code most nobles are born with. To prove his point, Kiorn asks if Turan can heal his bandaged hand, knowing full well it's not a skill his bloodline possesses. For example, the Ravista bloodline from the south can use healing magic without any training at all. Moving on, Turan asks about the second factor, affinity, which Kiorn explains is basically just familiarity. Turan immediately gets it, comparing it to how he created a fireball by thinking of it like throwing a rock. Kiorn confirms he's exactly right, by using a familiar action, he gave the spell far more speed and power. Finally, they reach the most important and complex factor, causality, a concept so deep even Kiorn doesn't fully get it. He poses a hypothetical: if you just used mana to try and kill someone, it would probably do nothing more than make their head glow a bit. To demonstrate, he channels mana into a mug, showing the flashy but ultimately useless effect of magic without a cause. The water may bubble, but without an appropriate cause for the desired outcome, magic fails to do anything significant. Of course, our genius protagonist immediately pipes up, saying he thinks he's already got the gist of it. He correctly explains that to kill someone, you need to provide a cause of death, like shooting a flame, rather than just wishing them dead. Kiorn is absolutely floored by how fast he learns, exclaiming that Turan could have been a top-tier scholar. Turan then asks why he can control normal animals but not magical beasts, and Kiorn explains it's because of their own mana resistance. Meanwhile, outside the window, one of his sheep seems to be listening in on the whole lecture. Turan smirks, realizing that a truly great mage needs to understand the principles of magic, not just how to use it. Thinking of his own lineage, he asks if the Zahar bloodline has a special magic, and Kiorn confirms they're masters of stealth and tracking. Without hesitation, Kiorn tells him to try it right then and there. Turan closes his eyes, focusing his will on a single intent, to become completely undetectable. A faint wisp of mana flows as he activates the Zahar family's signature skill. Kiorn looks over, his expression filled with anticipation, wondering if the kid actually pulled it off. And in an instant, Turan is just gone, vanishing from sight completely. A bead of sweat rolls down Kiorn's face as he admits it worked, he can't see him at all. Turan calmly reappears, his body shimmering back into existence as if he was never gone. Kiorn admits it's a truly frightening ability, the very same one the legendary Erebion knights feared most during the war. He calls it an unfairly powerful ability but warns Turan that it is not invincible. As Kiorn prepares to continue the lesson, Turan finally voices his concern: why is he teaching so much to a mage from an enemy family? Kiorn simply reminds Turan that he saved his life and was treated well in return. But more importantly, he tells Turan that he trusts his character, regardless of his bloodline. After their training, Turan heads to the village to settle his affairs, but the greedy village chief is having a meltdown. The chief couldn't care less about Turan's future, he's just mad that he's losing his best shepherd. But Turan isn't the meek shepherd anymore, coldly telling the chief to figure it out himself. He then gives them an ultimatum: either buy his sheep at a fair price, or he'll just release them all into the wild. The villagers look on in horror, knowing they'd have a hell of a time trying to recapture them. The chief knows Turan is a man of his word and that provoking him further is a losing game. Left with no other choice, he begrudgingly pays up, handing over a heavy pouch of coins. With his business concluded, Turan leaves the village and meets up with Kiorn on the road. Kiorn jokes that the villagers still owe him compensation and offers to go collect it for him. But Turan declines, pointing out that Kiorn was the one who actually caught the magical beast anyway. With a slight smile, Turan is ready for the next step of his journey. They finally reach a crossroads where they must go their separate ways. Turan politely refuses Kiorn's offer to travel together, saying he prefers to go alone. He wishes his new mentor well, hoping they can meet again one day with smiling faces. And so, Turan silently watches Kiorn's retreating figure for a long time. It's in this moment of departure that he has a profound realization. Though he never lacked love from his mother, the boy had always secretly yearned for a father figure. He needed a role model to show him what kind of man he should strive to become. Time passes, and Turan's journey takes him into a vast, unforgiving desert. The harsh winds blow across the desolate wasteland as he forges ahead. Alone, he travels towards the city of Murai, his first destination in the wider world. Pushing back his hood, he scans the desolate landscape for any signs of civilization. And that's when he spots it, a group of figures making their way through the canyon ahead. He spots a group of hooded travelers, assuming them to be merchants crossing the desert. Deciding to ask for directions, he confidently approaches the mysterious group. Their leader, a rugged man with an eye patch, questions him, but Turan politely asks the way to the nearest city. Surprisingly, the man gives him a straight answer, telling him to follow the road to a city called Murai. Turan thanks them for the information and begins to walk away. But just as he leaves, the bandit leader stops him in his tracks. One of the bandits steps up, menacingly asking if he really thought he could just get information for free. Turan's expression darkens as he realizes these aren't friendly travelers, they expect something in return. In a flash, the whole group unsheathes their swords, surrounding him and demanding his bag. He correctly guesses their identity, and the bandits don't even bother to deny it. The leader just laughs, reminding him that out here in the lawless wasteland, people disappear all the time. With a sword at his throat, they tell him to strip off his gear while they're being nice, as killing him would be too much work. Turan calmly processes the situation, he's dealing with bandits who have no problem with murder. He flashes back to his training with Kjorn, recalling the lecture on magic. He specifically remembers the lesson on causality, and how a fireball provides a perfect cause for destruction. With a chilling smile, the former Shepard decides it's time to put his lessons into practice. Turan smirks, deciding to use the foolish bandits as live target practice for his magic. The bandits just laugh, thinking he's some lunatic playing pretend and have no idea what's coming. With a simple gesture, Turan begins to gather mana, proving this is no act. He unleashes a powerful gust of wind that sends the entire group flying backwards. He realizes that shaping existing wind is far more mana efficient than creating it from nothing. Even Turan is surprised by his own power, while the bandits can only stare in disbelief. But he's not done yet, pulling out a flask of water for his next magical experiment. In an instant, the ordinary water morphs into a deadly shard of ice. He quickly forms an arsenal of ice shards that float around him, ready to strike. The bandit's cocky attitude is completely gone, replaced by pure, undiluted terror. With a flick of his wrist, the ice shards shoot forward and shred through his targets. Turan notes that while cool, the spell is a bit slow and just throwing rocks might be better. The surviving bandit leader immediately drops to his knees and starts begging for his life. His men seize the opportunity to try and sneak attack Turan. Unimpressed by their pleading, Turan simply stomps his foot on the ground. Giant stone pillars erupt from the sand, instantly wiping out the remaining bandits. The bandit leader stares in absolute shock, unable to comprehend the power he just witnessed. With a cold expression, Turan stands over the brutal aftermath of his practice session. Now completely at his mercy, the terrified leader agrees to answer any of Turan's questions. Turan asks a simple question: why did they attack him so recklessly without any plan? The bandits' answer was simple, and it catches Turan completely off guard. He confesses they attacked because Turan bowed his head to them, making him look like a weak pushover. With a cold look, Turan thanks him for the very useful, if harsh, lesson on survival. The bandit leader foolishly takes this as a sign he might be spared, desperately begging for his life. But Turan's only reply is to form one last drop of water right above the man's head. As Turan prepares to finish the job, he recalls some important advice from his mentor. The man had warned him to never show mercy to scum like bandits who prey on the weak. Back in the present, Turan finally understands the grim logic behind that lesson. Because sparing one predator out of pity could lead to 10 innocent people suffering later. Having learned his lesson, Turan decides he's wasted enough time and finishes off the last bandit. With the fight over, he begins to follow the cart tracks left in the sand. He walks alone through the vast desert, the path ahead clear but his mind in turmoil. It's then that the full weight of his actions hits him. He has just killed people for the first time. He feels a sliver of guilt, but remembers his mentor's warning about these kinds of men. People who kill and steal for profit wouldn't hesitate to do it again to someone else. Recalling these words helps calm his chaotic heart as he steps out of the desert. Leaving the wasteland behind, he finally arrives at the edge of civilization. For a boy raised in a quiet village, the sight of a bustling city leaves him speechless. He lays his eyes on the small city of Murai, his first stop in this new world. Used to a quiet life, Turan is immediately overwhelmed by the sheer number of people. The architecture alone is on a completely different scale from anything he's ever seen. Walking through the busy marketplace, it finally sinks in that he's truly in a city. He approaches a fruit vendor to ask for directions, who gives him a warm welcome. But the welcome turns cold the moment Turan says he isn't actually a customer. Recalling his mentor's advice, Turan knows he needs to find an inn to rest. The merchant, however, is having none of it and immediately tells him to get lost. Turan is baffled by the guy's rudeness, wondering if this is some weird city custom. Deciding to play along, he asks for the price of an apple, which is 2 dupit. Sensing Turan is an outsider, the merchant says he'll take regular coins instead of the local currency. As soon as Turan hands over a coin, the vendor's attitude does a complete 180, and he happily gives directions. Following the directions, Turan finds himself at the biggest inn in the city, the Pub and Inn. He's immediately greeted by a cheerful staff member named Lena, who seems very happy to see him. She compliments his looks and Turan, cutting to the chase, asks how much a room costs for the night. After learning it costs 16 dupit, he agrees to stay without any hesitation. He then pays her for the room and says there's something else he'd like to ask. Her curiosity piqued, she asks what he needs, and he reveals he's looking for a monster with a bounty. He explains that he needs to hunt monsters to absorb their mana and make some money on the side. Lena's smile turns a bit greedy as she realizes there's an opportunity for a tip here. She reminds him there's no such thing as free information and directs him to City Hall for bounties. Having grown up in isolation, Turan has never even heard of a City Hall before. He asks her what it is, which only confirms to Lena that he's a country boy. She finds his ignorance amusing and teases him for being from the countryside. She explains that it's where the city's lord and his officials handle public affairs. Lena tells him he'll have to go tomorrow, since it's probably closed for the night. Her question about him being a monster hunter only confuses him further. She explains the local legend, that an ordinary person can become a wizard if they hunt enough monsters. She quickly dismisses it as a dumb superstition, but Turan is intrigued. Suddenly, a big dude named Midden barges in, insisting he's seen people become wizards with his own eyes. Lena is just happy he's alive, but Midden boasts that he won't die until he becomes a wizard. He then pats a kid on the head, who is clearly not a fan of the sudden attention. Turan, his interest piqued, immediately asks Midden to tell him more about this wizard theory. Midden explains his simple logic: since wizards get stronger by killing monsters, a normal person should become a wizard if they do the same. He reveals his whole party is out there grinding monsters, all hoping to awaken their powers. Turan asks if anyone in his group has actually become a wizard yet, but Midden admits there are only 4 known wizards in the entire city. He then sizes up Turan, questioning how he hunts monsters with such shabby-looking gear and no obvious weapon. In response, Turan calmly reveals his own weapon, a simple but very well-used sling. Midden figures the sling would be good enough for hunting small fry like rabbit or fox monsters. Seeing an opportunity, he invites Turan to join their party as a shooter, but Turan isn't interested. He politely turns down the offer, preferring to be a solo player for now. Later that night, Turan lies in bed, thinking that there's no reason for him to team up with them. He reflects on the chaotic day, from fighting bandits to navigating a bustling city. It still feels surreal to him that he's actually left his isolated life behind. Staring at the strange new power in his hand, he wonders what his future will hold. Just as he's lost in thought, a sudden knock on the door startles him. He cautiously gets up and asks who it is, but there's no answer from the other side. He remembers his mentor's lesson that even in a city, he can't afford to let his guard down. His mentor had warned him that just because it's a city doesn't mean it's automatically safe. Turan had promised he would always remember that and never let his guard down. Remembering that advice, he silently prepares a magic spell before opening the door. He carefully peeks outside, ready for a fight, but is surprised by what he sees. It's just Lena, the inn staffer, standing there with a strange blushing smile. She tells him she came to keep him warm, which leaves Turan utterly confused. Before he can even process what's happening, she starts untying the bow on her blouse. At the inn, Turan is approached by Lena, who seems a little too friendly. Lena offers to do something strange for a piece of change, but Turan's not buying it. She gets closer, confident she can read his desires, but she has no idea who she's dealing with. Turan activates his ultimate defense, the inner Buddha technique, achieving a state of complete unbotheredness. Her seduction attempt fails so spectacularly that Lena's brain just short-circuits. The scene shifts to a memory of Turan's mentor, a weathered older man, screaming at him about something. His mentor had warned him to be careful with women in the city, giving some questionable life advice. Turan just calmly listened to the old man's lecture about not letting desire lead him into trouble. Back in the present, a dejected Lena walks away, frustrated by her encounter with Turan. Meanwhile, Turan collapses onto his bed, reflecting on how cold and transactional the city is. Elsewhere, some other hunters are gossiping about their boss's interest in Turan. One of them questions why their leader would even try to recruit Turan, since he looks so weak. Turan overhears them talking, realizing they just wanted to use him as monster bait. But their leader admits he was genuinely worried because Turan reminded him of his younger self. The next day, Turan arrives at what looks like the local bounty office or adventurers guild. An official with an impressive mustache greets him, ready to process his request. Turan gets straight to the point, asking the man if he's an official. He confidently states he's there to hunt monsters, much to the official's surprise. He recalls his mentor's words that the world won't be kind to him. The mentor's logic was simple: there's no reason for the world to be kind, so you have to make it respect you. His advice was to reveal he's a wizard, and then ordinary people would have no choice but to bow down. Back at the office, the official hands Turan a bounty poster for a monster. He tells Turan to just look at it and hand it back, clearly not expecting him to actually hunt it. Turan examines the crude drawing of a bird monster, earning a sarcastic comeback from the official for his obvious question. The official then gives him a final warning: bring the corpse back, because if a wizard doesn't disperse the mana, it becomes a wraith. Turan just smirks, telling the official he's well aware of the penalty for leaving monster corpses behind. He thinks back to a past mistake involving a wraith, vowing never to let it happen again. The official scoffs at the idea, saying knights are too busy to hunt every single monster. Sometime later, a dark shape falls from the sky right outside the bounty office. It's the Blade Crow, already dead with a massive hole blown through its chest. The official and his co-workers rush out, completely stunned by what just happened. They can't believe Turan brought the monster back so quickly after taking the request. Turan casually confirms that yes, he did in fact kill it all by himself. With the job done, he simply asks for his payment, leaving the official completely flustered. The official quickly hands over a pouch of coins, practically rushing Turan out the door. After he leaves, the workers gather around the corpse, amazed that its valuable blade wings are perfectly intact. The lead official eyes the door, a sudden thought crossing his mind. He turns around and is surprised to see Turan still standing there, not having left yet. Turan asks if there are any other monsters worth hunting, leaving the staff speechless. He looks back at them with a determined expression, as if one monster was just a warm-up. Later, Turan celebrates his earnings by ordering the most expensive meal at the inn. Lena serves him, completely shocked that he managed to kill 30 monsters in just 3 days. While happily munching on his food, Turan just smiles as she asks if he's rich now. He reveals that money isn't his real objective for hunting all these creatures. His actual goal is to absorb the mana from the monsters he defeats. Through this unique farming method, he's been steadily increasing his own power. He notes internally that his mana has already increased several times over since his last major encounter. However, he's beginning to feel a limit, realizing he can't get much stronger from weak monsters alone. Lena interrupts his thoughts, looking at him with a flustered expression. She's amazed that he managed to eat the entire massive feast all by himself. The muscular man from the other hunting party, Midden, seems happy that Turan enjoyed the meal. Turan thanks him and gets up to leave, but his departure is cut short. Suddenly, a hand grabs him by the collar from behind. It's two of Midden's cronies, and they do not look friendly at all. The thugs start mocking him, having heard about his recent earnings. Before the thug can even finish his sentence, Turan delivers a swift slap to the face. The man goes flying, and his buddy can only watch in shock as Turan shuts them down. Turan calmly puts his hands together, sarcastically asking if this is the charity they wanted. The second thug throws a punch, but Turan effortlessly dodges. With a cold expression, he counters with a punch of his own, sending the guy straight to the floor. The first thug gets back up and tries to attack Turan with a stool. But Turan stops the improvised weapon with just his open palm, completely unfazed. A flick to the forehead is all it takes to send the final goon flying across the room. Lena, who was watching from the sidelines, starts to freak out. She screams at them to stop fighting in her inn, but the confrontation is already over. Just then, Midden and the rest of his party arrive to see the aftermath, and he immediately apologizes. He assures Turan that he scolded his men and it won't happen again. Midden explains that his crew has been tight on money and got jealous of Turan's success. He forces his 2 bruised members to apologize, which they do reluctantly. Turan asks if things are really that hard for them, and Midden admits they've hit their limit. He confesses that in a few days, they won't even be able to afford their room fee. In a surprising act of kindness, Turan tosses him a bag of money. He tells Midden it's repayment for the kindness he showed earlier when he was worried, leaving the big guy stunned. Turan just smiles, revealing he overheard their conversation and that nothing in this world is truly free. In exchange for the money, Turan just wants some information, which Midden happily agrees to provide. A few days pass in the bustling city. Turan stands on a cliff overlooking the forest, thinking this might be his last hunt here. Thanks to the information from Midden, he's ready to head to the next city. He reflects on their conversation, realizing Midden is a genuinely good person. While not as experienced as other hunters, his kindness makes him seem more pure. But his peaceful thoughts are interrupted by a disturbing smell on the wind. Hoping his bad feeling is wrong, Turan dashes into the forest to investigate. He follows a trail of destruction, finding large claw marks on a tree. Walking deeper into the woods, he slows down as the scent of blood gets stronger. And then he finds it, a gruesome scene with a man slumped against a tree, clearly dead. As he gets closer, he recognizes the victim as one of the hunters from Midden's group. He kneels down, his expression turning grim as he wonders what could have possibly happened to Midden and his party. The dying man struggles to warn our hero, Turan. With his last breath, he gasps out the name of the creature responsible, Rabbit. Turan looks up and sees the horrific aftermath of the attack, a trail of bodies leading to the culprit. And there it is, a giant, bloodthirsty rabbit monster straight out of a Monty Python sketch. Without any hesitation, Turan turns to face the beast that slaughtered everyone. The rabbit lunges forward with incredible speed, aiming to take him down in one hit. But Turan, unfazed, notes its speed is just barely enough to be a threat. The rabbit's attack narrowly misses, showing this isn't Turan's first rodeo. Turan instantly winds up his sling. He hurls some rocks right at the beast. They fly through the air, creating a powerful slicing wave of energy. It's not just one attack, it splits into multiple projectiles to overwhelm the enemy. The rabbit dodges and weaves, shattering the magic attacks with its sharp claws. Turan calmly analyzes its movements, realizing its defense is specialized against thrown weapons. Suddenly, the rabbit leaps high into the air, preparing for a devastating dive attack. Its glowing red eye locks onto Turan, filled with pure murderous intent. Turan suddenly vanishes from thin air, leaving the rabbit confused. He suddenly appears directly behind it ready for a physical strike. His attack lands squarely on its face, making the rabbit screech in pain. He steps back, putting some space between his opponent. Turan then disappears into the air again. The creature charges at Turan's last location but slams into a tree. In frustration it slices ahead of it. It continues its onslaught, slicing frantically at everything in its range. The monster lets out one last agonized screech of frustration. A fatal wound from Turan's stab pulls at the beast's leg. The demonic rabbit finally collapses, its reign of terror officially over. As the dust settles, the dark aura around Turan's feet dissipates. He stands over the defeated creature, his expression as cold as ever. Turan then reaches out to absorb the mana from the rabbit's corpse. A massive surge of turquoise energy flows directly into his body. He's shocked, realizing this rabbit's mana is even stronger than the leopard monsters from before. The revelation leaves him momentarily stunned by the unexpected power boost. The dying man from Midas's party realizes he's a wizard. They had figured out he was a wizard and couldn't understand why he was hiding it. Instead of answering, Turan simply asked if any of the dead men had families to contact. The man's dying thoughts were of his boss, Midden, the man he looked up to. Turan recalls Midden telling him about a great city called Orem that had a library. A library with thousands of books, a tempting offer for someone seeking knowledge. Midden had noticed that the moment he mentioned books, Turan's interest was finally piqued. But there was a catch to getting into this legendary library. Apparently, only certified wizards were allowed entry, which explains a lot. Back in the present, Turan gazes over the forest, having finally made a decision. Standing before the graves he made for the fallen, he decides to go to Orem. He says a final farewell to Midden, the man whose dream he now carries. With a parting wish for his friend's peace, Turan walks away to start his new journey. Sometime later, Turan arrives in a bustling town, a stark contrast to the quiet wilderness. He realizes just how small the last city was compared to this new metropolis. And we get a bird's-eye view of the great city of Orem, complete with a massive castle. He joins the line of travelers, surprised by how many people are trying to get in. He notices the guards are screening people, likely looking for wanted criminals. He's impressed, noting that a great city would obviously have a better system. But just as he's about to enter, one of the guards yells for him to halt. The guard gets in his face and flat out denies him entry. He then proceeds to mock Turan's dirty clothes, telling him to go dust himself off. Ignoring the rude guard, Turan spots the massive, vine-covered library tower in the distance. He stands before it in awe, finally seeing the place Midden had described. The sheer scale of the building is overwhelming, clearly built with magic. He approaches the front doors, which are guarded by 2 more knights. Turan tries to enter, but the guard reminds him this library is for wizards only. So Turan bluntly tells the guard, Kenya, that he is, in fact, a wizard. This doesn't go over well, as Kenya immediately accuses him of being a lunatic impersonator. The guard puts a hand on his chest, smugly stating there's no way someone like him is a wizard. Suddenly, the guard feels an overwhelming pressure emanating from Turan's hand. Turan recalls his mentor's lesson that wizards can recognize each other by sensing mana. He decides to give the guard a little taste of his true power. The sheer force of his mana aura slams into Kenya, who can barely even scream. The guard collapses to the ground as his partner rushes to check on him. Lying there in terror, Kenya realizes Turan isn't just a wizard, but a high-ranking noble. Kenya immediately starts groveling, introducing himself as a knight of House Voltas. When Turan asks if he has to state his family name, the guard quickly says no. He explains that to use the library, Turan needs permission from the Master of Voltas and offers to set up a meeting. Next thing he knows, Turan is reluctantly getting a VIP bath treatment. He sighs, realizing this was supposed to be a simple trip to the library. But now he's stuck in a fancy bathtub surrounded by maids, completely baffled by the turn of events. Having had enough, Turan tells the maids to stop, and they immediately obey. The maids claim they'll be punished if they don't serve him properly, a classic guilt trip. Turan, completely done with the situation, just tells them to do whatever they want. After finally getting cleaned up, he's taken to the ridiculously lavish Voltas estate. One of the maids is completely stunned by his glow-up transformation. She blurts out her thoughts, then immediately covers her mouth in embarrassment. Now looking like a final boss, Turan asks if there's something on his face. The flustered maid apologizes, admitting she was just momentarily stunned by his beauty. Turan, ever so stoic, just tells her there's nothing to forgive. He's then led into a grand hall where his official audience will take place. He's brought before a young lady with pink hair who is clearly in charge here. She looks him over and smugly asks if he's the one who showed up looking like a beggar. But she has to admit, after getting cleaned up, he looks just like a prince. They formally introduce themselves, he is Turan, and she is Azella. Azella immediately grills him, asking which noble house he belongs to. His evasive answer only makes her more curious and a lot more suspicious. With a devious smile, she decides to play a little prank to find out the truth. Without warning, she unleashes her own powerful mana, filling the entire room. Her eyes glow as she gives him a simple but dangerous command, "Show me your mana," she demands, putting Turan in a seriously tight spot.